Hey, it's Todd Duncan. Welcome to the Where Success Happens podcast. Every single time we record a podcast, we have one desire, and that is to create impact in your life and your business by sharing with you implementable strategies to be your very best. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of hanging out with a guy that I've known since the early 2000s, Crosby. RJ is a producing branch manager. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he is a remarkable mortgage banker, an incredible human being, and a really intelligent operator. So RJ, welcome to our podcast today. It's good to have you here, friend.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here with you for sure.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, huh?
Oh, indeed. Indeed.
Yeah. It's so fun to just spend a couple minutes as we start these with like, what's your story? How did you get into lending? And then let's just bring it up to today. What's happened in the last 12 to 24 months in your life? You know, what have you done in the business that you feel really, really proud of? What have been some of the hurdles you had to get over? What are some of the greatest victories you've had? And we'll just have a great organic 30 minutes or so together. But tell everybody how you got started.
Yeah, well, as a young child, I knew I wanted to go into the mortgage industry. I knew all the way through high school and college, this is exactly what I was going to do. Probably like most of us, right? No, none of that's true. So, we all have our strange stories, but I was in telecommunications. I was a regional vice president for MCI WorldCom, managing 15 states and had 254 people in my organization. I was, my wife and I at the time were pregnant with our first child, and I wanted to be a dad that was home every night, sleeping in my own bed versus on the road. And happened to go golfing with a guy who was in the mortgage industry, and it seemed like I could probably, with, a lot of hard work and a little bit of good luck, might be able to replace my income as a regional VP of MCI WorldCom. So from there, I left all that behind, went full commission, and jumped into the mortgage business. My very first day in the industry, thankfully, he took me to this seminar in Denver, Colorado, where I watched you, Tim Broadhurst, Stephen Marshall, and Jim McMahon do a 12-hour long from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm like, man, these guys are hardcore. So it was 7 hours, just rolling out their playbooks. And yeah, it was just incredible. And then from there, probably a little cocky looking back, but I thought, geez, if they can do it, I can do it. So went on the journey, obviously have, I think my first year, you and I have talked, I think I spent $25,000 or $30,000 on all the different tools that you had, and just went absolutely all in, and it's been an amazing run. So that's how I got started.
Yeah, I love the story. And I recall something because you took the time in 2005 to send me a quick note, and you kind of lined everything out. And you had been going for, I guess, 3 years maybe or so. And I think the first year you said you brought in 20 million in volume. And then I think you jumped up to 40s something. And by the time that we got to the end of the paragraph, you were knocking on the door of 60 plus. And I know you've gone way higher than that too in your career. It's been fun to watch you, and fun to see the navigation of how somebody can actually make a career shift and then go to the next level. So it's a remarkable story. Yeah. So when you think about the journey so far, and you think about what you're doing today, what are you most passionate about in terms of being a mortgage professional, being a leader? What brings you joy and what gets you up in the morning?
I think it's probably kind of two different things. So on the origination side, that once I started my own branch and decided to start managing again, that culturally I implemented the word family, right? And that. And so that is really the passion, right? Is helping families. They're not files, loans, deals, transactions, they're families. And so we replace all of those words in our branch with that word family. And I think it's really caught on fire and is, almost industry wide, it seems like at this point, because it just resonates and it totally makes sense. So just helping families better themselves. I've always loved personal finance. So digging in there and just trying to improve the lives of families, that is absolutely my passion on that side. And then at this season of my career, I'm in a position to help, to mentor other people in the industry. And I've always loved that part as well. So, helping new originators that are on our team, in our company, in the industry, whatever, just like, the names I mentioned before help me. And so it's really, really fun to, I guess, maybe the common theme is I love changing lives. I love having an impact on people's lives. And I do that every day with families and every day with originators and processors and different people on the team. And it's just, that's my passion. That's what I focus on. And then the rest just falls in place.
So I think it's a remarkable, ideology, methodology. It's a remarkable, I think, decision to value people. And, I think in the world in which we live right now with all the confusion, we're still kind of figuring out how far closer to the end of COVID are we, and what's going on there, and all of that. We learned a lot of lessons in the last year and a half or so about work and productivity and what really matters. But before we go into that, I want to just go a little bit deeper in terms of the impact that you feel a team has under your leadership when you think about families instead of files. Because I think this is it's catching on, just like Lender for Life, has caught on. And you still have people that say they're a lender for life and they don't contact their past clients. And you still have people that talk about families, but they don't know what's really important to them. You've uniquely blended all this together, and the whole idea of emotional impact, emotional connection, and having people feel that you know them deeply, particularly when they're involved in arguably probably the biggest purchase that they'll ever make in their life and the biggest piece of debt they'll ever have in their life. Talk about how you get culture going. You have a t-shirt that says culture wins and, culture trumps strategy. You talk about that.
Well, I think simply put on that theme of family and what that does to a culture. I had an old processor at a previous company that literally I can visualize her doing it. There was, this is back in the day when we were stacking them and doing the hole punches and putting it together and everything. It was a pretty good size file at that time, right? And it was hard, right? It was a lot going on with this file. And she literally took it and was like, make this file go away. This thing sucks. Just make it go away. And rolling the clock forward, when you come to something like that, that's not a bad file, a crappy file that you're trying to make it go away. That's a family's story, right? That's a divorce. That's a medical situation. That's a bankruptcy, whatever. And they need our expertise, our skill set to solve those problems with them and help them get beyond all of that and into a home, which is all about family, right? So I remember that. And then I remember the first 10 days that we started our new branch, everyone came over from the old company. We instituted this new word, family, and we had one of those tough files. But now it was called a family. And the processor, different processor that had transitioned over with us, she was like, gosh, I'm finding myself all in with this family. They had a short sale and she was trying to navigate it all, work through the guidelines. And she's like, I'm all in. Like, I feel like when they get their house, I'm going to get the house with them. And I want to help this family and do everything I can versus a file that was taking longer than another, right? So it's just been huge culturally. And we just live it out every single day. That's what we do.
Yeah. I think it makes all the difference in the world because, when you connect with people, you have a entirely different foundation for having relationship, for having conversation, and certainly in the world in which we live, and we start to value the idea of client retention and loyalty and giving continual value years and years and years down the road. It is birthed at this idea that this is not 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. It is the Johnsons, right? And so you start to think of it that way, and it's powerful. So you're a producing branch manager. You have your own book of business. You help equip other people to succeed well. What are the things that you're most proud of that have really allowed you to become an effective leader of people, an effective developer of people, while still maintaining your own book of business? And so just unpack that for us. I think being a branch manager, being a producing branch manager, arguably is probably one of the tougher jobs that there is. I think a lot of people get into management without really asking, do I want to be a leader? Do I want to really develop? Because we're not born as leaders. We do have to learn how to lead. And typically we don't have a really great onboarding program for taking a loan originator and making them a manager. Talk about that journey. Talk about the lessons you've learned as a leader, maybe the one or two biggest things you've done. And then let's get into one or two kind of coaching situations where you've taken your leadership and made an impact on other LOs. So let's start with the first thing.
Well, I remember, and anyone that's come from any other industry, I'm sure you've had a similar reaction. But when I came into this industry, most other industries, you have a sales manager, and that's what they do is manage, and they have a sphere of influence of whatever, 6 to 12 or something like that. And then you have your salespeople. And when I came into this and saw that there are branch managers producing, I was like, what? That is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, that is nuts. I would never do that. Well, here I am. So yeah, it is a lot, and you definitely have to be on top of your game to be able to do it. Obviously, I had the unique fortune of being in management for, a really large Fortune 500 company, and all the training and experience that went with that. So for me, I definitely had a leg up. It wasn't like I started managing just because I was a top producer, which is what normally happens. But I think some of the stuff that I'm most proud of is, helping originators that have come into the industry, and, they struggle. You got to have some financial wherewithal to get going in this. And so it's a full commission deal, and, it can be really hard to get started in, but it's one of those businesses that if you can push through, obviously it's a great business, but the barrier to entry is pretty big. And it's gotten even bigger with licensing and everything else that we're doing now. So helping some of those folks that, really just, literally, there's one story where he had $500 in his checking account and was thinking about getting out of the business, and then went on to, do 20 million, and then 30 million, and then 36 million, and 42 million. And now he's at a different company now, but he's running his own branch. He's living in one of the best parts of town, just bought a building. It's super cool to have had my fingerprint on his path to success. And it just feels awesome. And we've got a couple examples like that, but yeah, it's really cool. And someday I'll be part of his story when he looks back on his life, and it's cool to have had that time with him. And others. Yeah.
I think that, where that impacts me is the idea of followership, which, leadership is about followership. And there's a difference between authoritative followership and value-based followership. And I think that it's an interesting distinction, because when leaders move from thinking that they're a manager and they have a title and therefore then to I'm a guy or a gal and I care deeply about my people and where I lead them. Followership is either you have to or you want to.
Right.
You have done a brilliant job creating I want to. And I think it's interesting to maybe have a dialogue about that, because, we all have KPIs, we all have metrics, we all have optics. We can manage that stuff until the cows come home.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you can only manage assets. You have to lead people. So when you think about leadership and you think about impact and you think about like the story you just said, that someday you'll be part of that story, why is it that so many managers don't understand the leadership piece? Or in your experience, how can that be expedited if you don't have, like you said, a lot of experience prior to coming into the role that you got into? What's your advice there? And I know some of the people you're talking about, and it's got to be, I feel it in my heart. I just feel like those people that you've impacted have been transformatively changed by you. And that's big.
Yeah. Super cool. Gosh, I think that I've always just subscribed to, not an authoritative style of leadership, leading by example, coaching, servant leadership, for sure. And I've had some wonderful examples of that in leadership throughout my companies as well. That was not the case in telecommunication at all. I really learned most of that over here in this industry. And the power of observation for me is huge. That's how I learn. So by being around successful people, by being as an example, whether you were sitting here talking to me or not, but going to Sales Mastery, right? And observing the success of others, and then being an elite and being around people that are living, working, loving at a very high level. Just that power of observation is huge for me. So I really just learned by surrounding myself with successful people, staying away from Eeyores, as one of my old leaders used to say. And then it creates this weather pattern of just success and positivity. I really think leadership at this point is very, very easy. It's not anything I have to try to do. It comes natural. I think that our whole culture and our branch is one of success. People want to be a part of it. And if I want to hire someone, this is literally what I do. I literally open my door right there. And I did this a few months ago. I open the door and I say, hear ye, right? Just to get everyone's attention in our thing. And I'm like, hey, gang, I want to hire a couple people. Here's what I want to do. And then that's it. And then all of a sudden, my inbox fills up with, hey, I got a friend over here, And we just recently hired 3 people that exact way. So I don't go, it's kind of like how I run my mortgage practice, right? It's referral only. Like you have to be referred to me, otherwise you're never going to find out about me. Same thing when we're looking to add people. So once you get to that point, like I say, it just creates this kind of positive weather pattern, and we're just rolling, just this success culture that people want to be a part of. They want to be a part of a winning team.
That to me is maybe one of the laydowns right there. People want to be part of a winning team. And, I think that it's interesting. One of the guys that you already mentioned, Jim McMahon, who was one of the 4 people that were part of that one day event that you came to. Jim made a comment to me 2 months ago in Texas, and he said, RJ is by far the best operator I have ever known. That's quite a compliment coming from the president of your company, Benchmark. And beyond what you've already said, if you were to do a clinic for people on what are the 2 or 3 things, not relationally, not emotionally, not family versus file. If you were to do a clinic, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think make you, what Jim said about you, the best operator I've ever met? If you're a clinic, you're talking to a bunch of branch managers right now, what's your 5-minute clinic?
I think that one of the keys is that you have to treat this like a business, right? So there is a process by which everything is done. There are job descriptions. There are scripts. It shouldn't matter who's off that day or who's on vacation or who's on the phone. Everything is done the same, right? The appraisal out phone call is the same. The pre-closing phone call is the same. It's all documented. It's all flowed out, and it all makes sense. And by the way, I didn't invent any of this stuff, right? I swiped and adapted from 19 years of going to sales mastery. So there's very, very little in there that I invented myself, but it's blending all the best practices together and creating what works for you and having a true business. And then there's a lot of coaching and mentoring. One of the things I think that, a lot of teams could do a better job on in this industry is something will go wrong and they all know it, but they're so busy, they just keep moving on. And the only way to get better is to do a post-mortem, kind of review on that. And then in our world, we love the expression fail forward.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing's so complicated, Todd. You're going to make mistakes all the time. I don't care how long you've been doing it. It's never going to be perfect. I act like it's kind of like a round of golf, right? You're never going to par every time. You're going to hit one in the water, shank one into the sand, whatever. It's just going to happen no matter how good you are. But you have to fail forward and just not make that mistake again. That's kind of our philosophy. But we go back, we talk about a mistake, huddle everyone up, learn from it, and then we go, okay, we can't make that one again. Like, we're going to make another mistake, no doubt about it, but we're not allowed to make that one again. And I think that's an important management tool, coaching tool, so that everyone's mortgage IQ comes up together, learning from each other's, rut rows.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable to think through what you just really said. You mentioned it earlier on the dialogue. You used the word observation and the power of observation. And I remember a quote when I was a brand new sales person in the mortgage business. It was from Ben Franklin. And the quote was, "The eye of the master will do more than both of his hands." And I think that points to what you just said. There's a lot of people that just labor their way to the end of the day. Yeah. And they muscle their way through and they handle all the stuff and they get through it and then they go home and like it's somewhere between then and the next morning, I got to get refired up to do that whole thing again.
Yeah.
And I think there's two things that don't happen. One is I don't think people are situationally observant. I don't think they stop long enough to go, this doesn't feel right, or this isn't working right, or we don't question through observation, is there a better way? Right, the second thing that gets in the way is that in order to grow, there has to be a culture that the leader establishes that failure is part of the success equation. In fact, you cannot have success if you could not also have failure. And so the idea that failure is okay, remarkably, the idea that failure is necessary, and then specifically, it's okay for you to fail. Yeah. But you don't want to do it twice. And there's some really game-changing things that, might have a little bit more grace. You could make the same mistake 3 or 4 times, and it's maybe marginal. It's not going to kill a deal or this or that. Mm-hmm. Or you can make one mistake one time, and it can kill a relationship. And the idea that a culture should be energetically focused on making mistakes part of greatness. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal because there's companies and there are leaders that don't feed that being okay. So how do you're big on the word huddle. We just had an elite call an hour and a half ago, and we talked about huddles. How do you as a leader handle the failures so that the team learns from them? And how do you how do you pour into somebody that has maybe made a mistake and have them feel okay about it? Because I think that would be an exceptional little couple minutes to talk about.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. One, we have a system in our branch called Did You Know? So if you stubbed your toe on something, a guideline gotcha, or maybe the opposite, you like read some guideline and it's like, what? I've been in the business 15 years. I had no idea you could do that. Rather than you being the only one that knows it, we send out a Did You Know email. So the subject line is Did You Know? And then you just, like if an underwriter emailed you something, you cut and paste it in or kind of explain what you did or what got you or whatever, and then just send it out to everyone. Okay. So then everyone looks at that. Again, everyone's mortgage IQ coming up together. Okay. Because now you got everyone in the branch doing this stuff. And then you save it over in a Did You Know Outlook file. So now the next time you come across that, you're like, I swear someone sent something out on that. You go to it and boom, and you're off and running. You don't have to fact find and figure all this out. So that's number one. Number two, we have something called Loan Officer Think Tank. Okay, and I have multiple branches that come in on this. And we do it doing teams now. So we do 20 minutes on marketing, 20 minutes on processes, and 20 minutes on programs. I'm simply there to moderate and get us moving from one topic to the other, but everyone kind of brings their stuff, might be the Did You Knows or whatever. And again, we're talking, and it's amazing. I mean, look, have I gone to those thinking, what are these guys that do less volume than me possibly going to teach me or whatever? And you come out of there and you're like, that is unbelievable. Like, whatever. Chris down the hallway figured out how to do whatever, and he's been originating for 6 months and he cracked the code on something that I didn't even know you could do. So we create a place to share all that sort of information. Now, if it's something significant where a mistake has put a loan in jeopardy, then that's a quick little huddle of everyone on the team. And we use our brain power to be like, okay, so this is what happened, but how can we get this back on track, make it seamless? We know we stubbed our toe, but can we get beyond this, get back on track and make it kind of behind the scenes row, or are we going to have to inform people of what happened? So yeah, just a quick huddle to get all that mortgage IQ together.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. And I think, I think it's interesting I just wrote down meeting structure. And I think that far too often we don't have like structural agendas around meetings. And when you get into those buckets, the three you just mentioned, you get a rhythm going and it's powerful. And I think a lot of people are bored of meetings and tired of meetings. And we look at COVID and we look at Zoom and how many people have just massive Zoom fatigue. And, meetings should be engaging. They should be, rewarding. They should be informational, instructional. They should be free from any fear of sharing anything. And that's kind of the culture that you've created. It sounds exceptional. Let me shift gears. We've got about 5 minutes left or so, and we come out of like last year. We're all getting through what we started in March of last year, and we were in Savannah for a lead, and it was like, boom, here comes COVID.
Yeah.
What have you done? What are the high water marks or lessons you've learned in leading through the difficult times that we've been involved in? Remote learning, remote doing, remote, talk about that a little bit and how you have some high watermarks that you think were really great moments in a period in our country's life and the world's life that was a little difficult, to say the least.
Yeah, I remember being in Savannah, and it was a unique opportunity where we were there with people from all over the country, right, in Elite. And so they're getting pictures of grocery stores emptying out and whatever, and maybe different parts of the country aren't. And so, I called my close circle back here and I'm like, listen, like right now you got to go do this, 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 and this. And they're like, oh, it's no big deal or whatever. And I'm like, no, like right now, like, listen to me, this is what's going on around the country. And then, gosh, it was even, bigger deal than any of us thought. But I think one kind of thing that I realized going through last year is that operational efficiency wins the game. A lot of people had volume that they couldn't even handle properly. And we were so efficient that we were literally raising our hands saying, hey, corporate, if you have any branches that are struggling to process or whatever, we've got extra capacity. And wait, you have what? And so we literally brought in a lot of revenue last year by doing contract processing for other branches because of the operational efficiency. And we went most of the year with only 2 processors, but they were able to do 50, 60 families a month because of the way the upfront team puts it together. So I think that's when we really got a lot of attention in this branch for operational efficiency. And then they paired us up with a couple of other branch opportunities. And, we've since partnered with other branches, and it's been really, really awesome. So I think that is the key, is that, it's kind of like a well-trained, someone in special forces who's well-trained, right? If you're well-trained and you've rehearsed it a million times, when you're put in the heat of battle, they perform at crazy high levels. And we have a lot of Green Berets that I'm fortunate enough to know and work with and now call really good friends. But it's training, 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 training. And that's what we did. I just don't think we knew how good we were until we got tested. And it was pretty awesome. And we really stood out. And I mean, it's not me. It's this incredible group of people that I call teammates here at the branch that it's just incredible. It was an incredible experience. And we definitely stood out and did a great job, created raving fans internally and externally.
Yeah, no, it's super powerful. And, it's interesting too, and I say this to everybody that's listening or watching, one of the things that we talk about is if you don't have a way of doing business, you'll have as many ways as you have clients. And what RJ has brought up, and certainly what I think led to Jim saying what he said about you, is the idea that you have created a manufacturing process that is delightfully sensitive to a family's situation going through buying a home. And it's repeatable. It is effective. It is systematic. Without making it too mechanical, it is an assembly line that has every piece of the journey figured out. And that's why you can have people go on vacation and people step in and have people, away from maternity leave or this, that, or the other thing. And the business keeps working. And I would say to everybody that's watching or listening, I just wrote down, sometimes I write stuff down and I can't look away because I don't want to look away from the moment, but I wrote down operational efficiency wins the game. And that to me is maybe one of the big takeaways, is that if you, as a mortgage professional at whatever level you are, can help build efficient manufacturing of the customer journey and delight them in that process and have it be repeatable, there's no telling how much volume you can do and how much faster you can help a family win and how much loyalty you create through that, minimizing any of the stress that typically goes into buying and financing a home. And by the way, everybody that works in that process ends up with more joy because it's less stressful. And I think that's the big takeaway from that moment. Final question. What would you tell today, knowing what you know, the RJ in 2003, I think, or 2, when you got into the business? What would you tell that younger RJ today, knowing what you know now?
I think I would tell that RJ that fitness and health are the number one priority to success, and that you need to make sure that you're doing you every day before you help everybody else. And I think really I would just park it right there, because without health, you really have nothing. And I think in our industry, it's pretty easy to let health go. We sit all day, long hours on the phone. I think it's it's kind of our own industry pandemic is you know what I mean? Really, it is. And you see it when you're at sales masteries and stuff. But yet people have figured it out. I mean, people are, like got great waistlines and great businesses. It absolutely can be done. And I think that's what I would tell my younger self, because it's hard to catch back up. When you let that go, then it's like, oh man, this is a lot of work, like Mount Everest getting back. So yeah, I would make that part of my daily disciplines from day one, going into this industry that is got a lot of stress and a lot of sitting.
It's really powerful because you bring up sales mastery, and while we did a virtual event last year globally with 9 countries and 48,000 people, the year before we were in San Diego, and I talked about a report that had come out, a clinical report on the healthier people are, the wealthier they become, and wealthy people are healthy people, and those two things are together, and they cannot be separated. It doesn't mean that everybody that's wealthy is healthy, and it doesn't mean that everybody that's healthy is wealthy, but there is correlation that those two things advance based on each one of them advancing. So super powerful. And I love you going back to that. And, we've been on journeys together for a long time on health and wellness. And it's an exceptional idea to close our time together. So RJ, thank you so much for just being a shining light in the industry. Thank you for leading at the level you lead. I know you've made an impact, you and your team, on thousands and thousands of lives. And it's remarkable to call you friend. And I appreciate our time together.
Thank you, Todd. And seriously, thank you for what you do for our industry, what you've done for me, my family. It's really, really special, man. Thank you.
That's why I wake up, man. That's all I need to hear. Yeah. Cool, man. Okay. Have a great day. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.